Robert Wall was born in Oak Ridges in 1942. His hockey dreams began on a backyard pond at the Mitchell's farm. He wanted to play in the National Hockey League like his idol, Gordie Howe. A Lake Wilcox classmate asked 13-year-old Bob to play on his winless team against an undefeated team from Newmarket. And as a result, the Lake Wilcox team had their first win. The following year, Bob began playing in Aurora. His Bantam team won the 1957 All-Ontario Championship.
We won the All-Onterios, and we got back to Aurora, and we had a little ride on the fire truck and stuff like that. Through the town, back again. We stopped here in front of the post office one day and had our pictures taken. Bob was there with all the rest of us. Yeah, it was a fun day.
After his midget year, his Aurora coach Paul McGuire invited scouts to assess Bob's best friend, Charlie Leeming. Instead, Bob Wall caught their eye, and in 1959, at the age of 16, he was drafted to the Detroit Farm Club, the Hamilton Tiger Cubs, later renamed the Hamilton Red Wings. There were only 6 Junior A teams, and only 3 players were permitted to be from outside of their own town, and Bob was one of the 3 chosen.
And I had the opportunity of going down to see Bob play when he was first in the junior leagues, and there was no doubt that they made the right choice in selecting Bob Wall as a member of their hockey organization. He was a standout that night that I saw him play in Hamilton. He just was one of those guys that fit right in.
In 1959, he received the Rookie of the Year award, and in 1962, he won Best Defenseman. That same year, the Hamilton Red Wings won the Memorial Cup, making them Canada's top Junior A team.
I remember when I was young, 11, 12, I used to watch CHCH Channel 11 TV here in Toronto, and Hamilton Red Wings were on every Thursday night. And I remember 1962, the Hamilton Red Wings won the Memorial Cup with Bob Wall on the team. Other players, Paul Henderson, Lowell McDonald, Pitt Martin, quite a great team. But Bob was the leader on defense, and I clearly remember that.
Bob Wall was also named the first All-Star defenseman in the Ontario Hockey League. During the 1963-64 season, Wall played for the Montreal Canadiens and then for the Omaha Knights and won the Central Professional Hockey League Championship with the second All-Star team. During the 1964-65 season, he played with the Memphis Wings and then the Detroit Red Wings. Eventually, Wall was in the same dressing room as Gordie Howe. He fondly recalls his first NHL goal, scored in New York City's old Madison Square Gardens, assisted by Howe and by Alex Delvecchio. Bob's dreams had come true, but there was much more to come. Bob also played in the 1966 Stanley Cup Finals. In the 1966-67 season, he and his American Hockey League team, the Pittsburgh Hornets, won the Calder Cup.
And for LA, their 5th penalty of this hockey game as compared to 2 to the Toronto Maple Leafs game. Well, they're playing a rugged
Bob was a fast and agile defenseman with a big heart and a tremendous desire to win. The NHL consisted of 6 teams until 1967, when they expanded to 12 teams. Bob was drafted to the Los Angeles Kings and named the first captain of this new team.
Bob was a great skating defenseman. He had great mobility. He was a defensive defenseman, moved the puck well. That's why he was drafted by LA. They were looking for players like that to solidify the back end. He was a quiet guy. He wasn't a boisterous guy. And I think anytime a guy like that is made captain, it's because of his leadership on the ice, is the way he plays the game, the way he conducts himself off the ice. People who run teams look for players like that. They look for players who other players gravitate to. They look for players who make other players better. And I think that's what Bob did in his day. I was fortunate because I got to work with Bob later in the 60s at the Dave Keon, Billy Harris Hockey School, so I got to know Bob personally, and he was a very impressive guy, a guy who was just drafted by the LA Kings, and he was one of the pioneers for our sport. Like, he's one of the guys who went out there in those non-traditional hockey markets and established what hockey, or helped establish what hockey is today in Los Angeles. So Bob was a remarkable guy, a quiet guy, very impressive guy when I met him at a young age for me, and left a great impression on me.
And the first intermission guest tonight is Bob Wall, captain of the Los Angeles Kings.
3 years later, Bob was traded to the St. Louis Blues and then back to Detroit. When the World Hockey League started up, Wall was drafted to the Alberta Oilers, later known as the Edmonton Oilers, for the 1972-73 season, before joining the San Diego Mariners. When Bob retired in 1976, he and his wife Margaret and their growing family wanted to move to a town with a winning attitude and chose Aurora in 1977. Bob continued to be involved in the sport by playing for the NHL Old Timers and coaching his son's Aurora hockey teams. Bob continues to enjoy life with his wife, 3 children, and 6 grandchildren. And now we are proud to welcome athlete Mr. Bob Wall into the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame.
Presenting sponsor, Mr. Jim Gregory, NHL Vice President of Hockey Operations, on behalf of Rocco DeSantis of DeSantis Construction Limited to the stage, and proudly invite Bob Wall to the stage.
Thank you, James. Wow, this is breathtaking. I don't know where to start. Thank you, Mike. Kind words. Thank you very much, everybody. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am more than proud and excited to be here tonight with you people. Thanks for some of my family members being here. And I recognize a lot of my good friends are here also. Thank you very much. I want to thank my sister Betty Cloak for nominating me for the Hall of Fame. And I'd like to thank the selection committee and my sponsors for making this all come true. I'm pretty excited about this whole evening. You probably have already figured that out. But I did mention as a young boy, I had a dream in national hockey, to play in the National Hockey League. My idol was Gordie Howe, and I just worshiped Gordie from the minute I saw him play the game. And I was so fortunate to be drafted into the Detroit organization, and the video has me showing with Gordie, and it was Mr. Howe at first, and it went to Gordie, and last times I was with him, it was Gord. And when Gordie assisted on my first NHL goal, I was almost like, pinch me, wake me up, my dream is here. I got to share a story with you that it's a Bobby Orr story. but Gordy's involved. And we're talking about Bobby Orr earlier, and this is the first time that with Detroit we're in the Boston Gardens. And of course all the fans are jeering Gordy, you know, you Wookie killer, you know, this is the New England accent. And anyway, the first period goes on, Bobby goes behind their net, Cheevers is goaltender. Gordy cuts across from right wing, takes him out in the far boards, and with the puck, turns around and shoots at Cheevers, makes a save. Within minutes later, the same almost identical play occurs, and this time Bobby doesn't get up. Trader comes out, and the fans are throwing things at Gordy. Gordy comes over our bench, and I'm sitting right beside Alex Delvecchio, and Gordy's like 5 feet in front of me, in front of us. And Alex says, Gord, what did you do to the kid? And Gord said, oh, he wanted to play in the league, didn't he? So I welcome him to the league. What Gord had done, though, is he was Gordy, the right-handed shot. He cut across in front. He took his right hand off the stick and gave him the backhander as Bobby Orr was sweeping quite low. Could not believe this, but Orr got up and he came over to our bench and he stood face to face with Gordy, Mr. Hockey, and said, I don't know if this league is big enough for both of us. I'm looking at an 18-year-old kid, you know who you're talking to? Anyway, I'd like to thank my wife, Mark, of 53 and a half years. And we have 3 children. The oldest is Bob, who is here tonight with us, and his girlfriend, Connie. Son Dan is away at a convention with and our daughter's away at a convention also. They're in Las Vegas. I'm the most proud grandpa of those 6 grandchildren. And I'm lucky to have 3 of them here tonight. I got Tyler, Jack, and Gracie Varga are here tonight. Evan, Abby, and Anna, who are not able to be here. But I'm so fortunate to have 6 grandchildren. They're all fit and healthy, and got a couple of them involved in sports. They're all doing very well and they're healthy. That's the main thing. During my lifetime, I'm fortunate to have known 3 people who were very, very inspirational to me. And the first one was my father-in-law, Jack Waters, father of 4 girls. No, 3. No, 4 girls. And my father-in-law, Jack, he really took to me. He treated me just like the son that he never had. That was very heartful for me to have a father-in-law like that, and mother-in-law was, she was just the first man and the first boy on the scene there with the 4 girls, and I was welcome. The next person was it's a role model. This is Pat DeSantis is his name. Richmond Hill construction. We had to work in the off season just to make ends meet. The salaries in the hockey day back then were just nothing like they were today, as you some of you people probably know. So I worked with Pat, and later on I became a very, very close friend of mine. He was I think an excellent husband and a great father with 6 lovely kids, and I see some of them here tonight. I look at them and they're not kids anymore. They're very well-being people. And the last friend was a fellow named Bill Ford from Los Angeles. When we first arrived in Los Angeles, Bill and his wife Doris took us under their wing. They sort of nurtured us along, and anytime that we were on the road, they would do their best to make sure that Mark, my wife, and the kids were, anything they needed, they were there. And Mark and I referred to them as our California parents. So it was, unfortunately, they're not with us any longer, but they were just great, great people. We were so proud to live in Aurora here, and I was so fortunate to be able to coach our two sons in hockey. We won Ontario championships with both of them in different years. And my best friend Charlie Leeming and I got together and we coached my daughter's baseball team. This was the junior diggers at the time. And then my daughter took up Highland dancing, and she won several medals and awards in Highland dancing. Let's just say life's been good. And right now, I just love to thank all the friends that I have here. They're with us tonight, friends and family, and there's some old-timer friends here that I played some old-timer hockey with here in Aurora, and they're still great friends. I thank the selection committee for making this one very special evening for me, and my family. I'm sure they appreciate it too. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
We officially present 2017 Hall of Fame inductee Bob Aurora.